Over at BangTheBook.com, we are your one-stop shop for sports betting news and information. Lots of great stuff, lots of great insights over there from our very talented cast of writers. My college football Week 3 power ratings and my lines for this week's games have been posted over there at the website. The Week 3 college football opening line report for the market, for the openers, all that type of stuff, posted over there as well. NFL opening line report will come here this afternoon after I get Bang the Book Radio up. We got golf again this week here as well. We'll have a preview later in the week from James Mazzola. I'll write up my DFS piece probably tomorrow on the upcoming golf event. NASCAR, soccer, tennis, WNBA playoffs begin this week, so we'll be able to talk about that. NASCAR playoffs begin this week too, at least for the Cup Series. So have a preview for this week's race in Las Vegas. UFC preview coming up later in the week. It's a very busy time of year across all the sports markets. And again, it doesn't get any easier as we get into the fall here. So make sure that you keep BangTheBook.com as your one-stop shop for sports betting news and information. As you know, this and every edition of Bang the Book Radio presented by our friends over at DSI Sportsbook. BTB and the number 200 is that promo code. 100% deposit match bonus for the sportsbook. 100% deposit match bonus for the live casino at BetDSI. It's only a game until you bet it. All right, so we take a look here at the two Monday Night Football games for this evening. Once again, Texans Saints, the first one. Broncos Raiders, the second one. And, look, I talked about these games on Friday in my Super Contest segment. If I get both of them tonight, we'll have a 4-1 opening week in the Super Contest. If I don't, obviously we'll see what happens there. If I get both of them, I'll be 3-1-1 in the Circa Million to start things off. So really hoping for these two games tonight because it was a tough weekend for me on the college football card. But looking again here at these games tonight, in case you missed Friday's segment or, you're kind of waiting on the fence here what to do about these two games. Look, Houston and New Orleans is a really interesting matchup. Line down to 6.5. Pretty much market wide out there. You could have had Houston at 7 earlier on in the week. You could have had Houston at 7 if you hadn't account at BetOnline or Bovada, where there's still 7 with some extra juice there. I like the Texans in tonight's game. I really do. I don't want to say that week 1 is a look-ahead spot for New Orleans, but they do have the Rams on deck. Playoff rematch game, short week. They got to fly out west where they're going to spend probably 2 weeks because they play Seattle in week 3. So the Saints do have, some longer-ranging implications in mind. And, look, I mean, our look-ahead spot's a real thing. Our sandwich spot's a real thing. You could certainly say that they are. I think there's an argument that they're probably not as well. But what it says to me, at least in regards to this game here, is that New Orleans probably isn't going to be mobilized to blow out Houston. And Houston is a team with a lot of offensive weapons, particularly in the passing game, where Deshaun Watson now has better protection with Laramie Tunsil at the left tackle position. He's got a safety valve type guy in a Duke Johnson, which is something that Houston could really use here, especially with Lamar Miller out of the equation. Now, you run the football by throwing the football, swing passes, screens, all these types of things. I don't know why these NFL head coaches all preach about forcing the run. It's absolutely asinine. I don't think there's any reason for Bill O'Brien to do it here with the weapons that he has. So Houston, should be able to move the football here in this game tonight. They certainly have the weapons to go up against this Saints team. And look, I mentioned this on Friday's show. Bill O'Brien, since he took over as the head coach of the Texans, his team in rushing yards per attempt, 23rd, 28th, 19th, 16th, and 19th. Without Lamar Miller, I don't think that they're going to run Carlos Hyde a whole lot between the tackles here in this game tonight. And these teams in the NFL should throw the football. I know that some teams had great success running the ball yesterday. Teams like the Ravens, the Colts had a lot of success running the football against the Chargers as well. But this is a quarterback-driven league. This is a league predicated on throwing the football. We see all these ticky-tack pass interference calls. I don't know how many defensive holding calls we saw yesterday. Anytime you get in the vicinity of the quarterback, it's a roughing the passer call. Throw the football. I think Houston's offense is better when they're going to drop back and throw, 70% of the time, if not more, in a situation like this where they don't have Lamar Miller. So I think the Texans are in a much better spot. I know the New Orleans Saints can be more balanced. They probably will be here. But I'm also one of those people that is looking for a little bit of regression here from Drew Brees. There's a lot of anti-Drew Brees sentiment out there coming into the season. The way you beat the Texans is to take the top off that defense, throw the ball deep, if you've got time with that pass rush, which, is neutered a little bit without Jadeveon Clowney now. Now it's just J.J. Watt trying to wreak havoc. But I think Houston is set up well here from an X's and O's standpoint. I think the spot is okay for them as well because this is the type of atmosphere I think they're comfortable with. A higher scoring game, the expectation of a lot of points here in this one. Total on this game, 52.5. I think this is the right type of spot for the Texans. So I do like them here in tonight's game. And then in the nightcap, I liked Denver before the Antonio Brown situation kind of came to a head. I certainly like Denver a lot more now. Denver is set up very well from a personnel standpoint to run this Vic Fangio defense. They've got physical corners that can play in an island, and they got a bunch of different pass rushers that can come from a bunch of different angles. I think this is a spot where Denver has a lot of success on defense against Derek Carr. I think it's a tough defensive scheme to prepare for. And also, too, John Gruden hasn't had the luxury of being able to prepare for this Fangio defense with the personnel that the Broncos have. Obviously, he can take a look at it in terms of what Fangio did with the Bears, but every team has different personnel. Every team is a snowflake in that regard where, Fangio can send guys on some similar-looking blitz packages to what he had with the Bears, but it's going to be different guys coming at the quarterback, maybe guys from different angles. I think it's tough to game plan for what Fangio is going to do here in this opening game. And for Denver, Denver is the opposite of Houston. They probably do need to run the football first with Joe Flacco at the helm. But Flacco's at least competent enough to not make big mistakes, not put the team in bad situations. So I think it's one of those things where the Broncos are going to be a balanced offense, but balance works for them because they've got talented running backs, because they have an offensive line that's probably better at run blocking than it is pass blocking. And the Raiders are just, with how this team has been stripped away, and now with what seems to be a butting of heads between John Gruden and Mike Mayock already, I just think that trickles down to the field here for Oakland. I agree with Denver being a 2.5-point favorite with extra juice now. I agree if this line goes to 3. I've got it pick them in the SuperContest, 2.5 in the Circa Million, but I do like Denver here in tonight's Monday Night Football game. So both of the road teams on the card for me, but some quick takeaways here from week 1 of the NFL, and I'll talk more about this on tomorrow's segment with Brian Blessing when we go a little bit more in depth with the Professional Football League, is that yesterday we saw a lot of sloppy football, a lot of penalties, a lot of turnovers, some games that were very lopsided, some blown leads, some ugly first halves and some better second halves. None of this is a surprise because a lot of these teams they can't flip that switch. They just don't get geared up in the preseason for when the games really start to matter. So this is probably something that we want to factor into the equation heading into next year. Obviously, the ship has kind of sailed a little bit here this year, except for tonight's 2 games. But, when you look around here, in how many games yesterday was the better team clearly the better team in the second half? Several of these games, I think that was the case. In several games, you had teams going to a shell, teams going to a prevent defense. All the prevent defense does is prevent you from covering and quite possibly, in the case of the Detroit Lions, prevent you from winning the game. And this happens in the NFL. It happens in college. I don't know why some of these teams do this. I don't know why so many of these teams just take a foot off the gas. They stop running their offenses. They stop running their defenses. They stop going with what got them to a successful point in the first place. And I just don't understand it. And we see this situation play out time and time again. It's like the no doubles defense in baseball. Okay, you don't want to give up the extra base hit, but how many, bloopers fall in front of guys, create base runners, create situations. Now you're talking about a league where the ball just jumps off the bat. Home runs are up again. Why would you worry about doubles? Just prevent the extra base runners. So these coaches, these decision makers, just across the board in all of these sports, it seems, just mistake after mistake after mistake, or things that just don't make sense. It makes it so hard to bet on these things. And I'll talk about this a little bit more here in a few minutes when I talk about the mental side of handicapping, but it is damn frustrating the way that a lot of these coaches handle themselves, whether they have leads or whether they don't. You know, the Colts, yeah, you had success running the football, and yeah, they wound up tying the game, but they're running the ball with, one timeout left and under a minute and a half to go. And it's like, what are you doing? I don't understand so many of these coaches, so many of these play callers, and it does make it really frustrating in a lot of different ways. So we'll see if these teams here in week 2 of the NFL season kind of figure some things out, work out some of the kinks now that everybody's had a chance to get into the flow of the game. But it was a messy Sunday, and if you did well, kudos to you for that, because I think that it was one of the more challenging week 1 slates simply because we had no idea what to expect from so many of these teams, from really, punting and bypassing the preseason. All right, so I'll transition to a much different betting market here. That's Major League Baseball. Got a handful of games on the Monday night card. I believe we got 8 or 9 of them here for tonight's action. And, actually some pretty reasonable lines here in some of these games, but still a lot of big favorites, still a lot of price inflation. And look, that's just going to be the case here the rest of the way. I mean, it is what it is at this time of the year. You've got teams in the playoff hunt. You've got teams going nowhere, teams in the home field advantage hunt, all this different type of stuff. And you get a lot of these big favorite roles. We are 8 days worth of games into the month of September. We've had 41 favorites of minus 180 or higher. They are 35-6, 85.4%, according to the results over at the killersports.com database. $100 bettors up almost $2,000 in 8 days just by laying the big favorite prices. Run lines also 29-12. When you look at these big favorite situations right now in Major League Baseball, again, favorites of minus 180 or higher, they're outscoring the opposition on average 6.2 to 2.9 per game. So a lot of these games haven't even really been competitive. Only 12 of 41 ending with a run line winner for the underdog, and you've got 6 outright wins. So of the 35 wins here for the favorite, minus 180 or higher, only 6 of those wins by 1 run. So like I said, a lot of these games just haven't even been competitive in a lot of ways. So this is just something that we have to do. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, but I've talked about it kind of throughout the season as a whole. I mean, right now in Major League Baseball, until the gap gets closed between the really good and the really bad teams, your best bet in baseball is just to overcapitalize yourself and play these big favorites, because they're just cashing at a crazy rate here this season, and we're seeing it over the course of the season as well. Again, minus 180 or higher favorites here so far this year, 74%. If you're a $100 bettor, you're up almost $9,500. 7.5% ROI on these big favorites. 408 and 143. Again, 74%. And a lot of these games, not even all that close. So that's the big thing in Major League Baseball right now. And it's kind of funny because, something I'm going to talk about with Kyle Hunter in the next segment, something I've kind of noticed in college football, is that the talent gap is really spread out now. Or the talent pool, I should say, is really spread out now. You have a lot of these middling Power 5 teams on par with the other middling Power 5 teams. You have your elites, and there's a handful of those. You've got your bottom feeders, and a lot of them, resign to the group of 5 conferences and whatnot. But it feels like the teams in the middle are just almost interchangeable on a week-by-week basis. It's not like that in baseball. It's not like that at all in Major League Baseball right now. The haves have and the have-nots do not have, and that's just the way that this season has gone here so far. Again, 74% for minus 180 or higher. Great return on investment there, 7.5%. That's just it. That's what Major League Baseball is and has been over the last several years, because there's so much incentive to tanking. It is really hard to build up a farm system without elite level talent or an elite player development staff. So what is the plan? Well, the plan is that you overhaul your organizational approach and then you get talent into the minor league system and try to develop it. It's why the Houston Astros are so good. Right now, it's why the Cleveland Indians have been able to sustain with some injuries and also, they're a casualty when it comes to the finances of Major League Baseball, but they've been able to develop guys like a Shane Bieber, like an Aaron Savale, like an Oscar Mercado. Now they've got Daniel Johnson coming up as well. They've got some guys in the low levels that are very, very highly thought of prospects. They're not tanking necessarily, but it's all about building this player development staff and building up your organization's talent level. The best way to do that is by being bad, is by getting those high draft picks, is by getting that revenue sharing money, is by having that international pool money. All the different types of things that teams do to position themselves to get that raw talent. So right now in Major League Baseball, that gap is just really, really large. And yeah, maybe it takes some of the fun out of the handicap. But you know what? It's really fun to win money too. So if you're able to be mobilized enough to play these really big favorites, still going to be the way to do it here in Major League Baseball over the last 3 weeks of the regular season. Probably going to be the way to do it next season as well. And again, I don't think that this will change too much until we start to see the talent levels kind of eating out a little bit. Now, as far as just looking at individual games here over the last 3 weeks of the regular season, I will say this. Something I have failed to account for in leagues like the NBA, college basketball, NHL, MLB, the daily sports basically. These teams are very streaky these days. The good teams just have more streaks than the bad teams, essentially. And that's something that I have a really hard time wrapping my head around because as somebody who's well-versed in the analytics, I'm a big believer in sample size. And teams are just streaky. How many times do you look and see that a team has won, 7 of 10, 8 of 10, 9 of 10, 12 of 15, 15 of 20, something like that. It's almost like this is just a game where the margins are small between individual players, that it's just almost a matter of confidence. And confidence is completely unquantifiable. It's just, there's no way of accounting for that in the betting line or anything like that. But it just seems to me like these teams that are running good keep running good. And you want to back them until something bad happens, and then they could go into a little bit of a tailspin. So as we go throughout the rest of the season here, look for these teams that are on these runs because they're very likely to continue. And it's such a simplistic way of handicapping, and maybe that's why I don't like it. Maybe that's why I have an inherent bias towards it, because I like to dig into the numbers as much as I do. But, a team like Arizona playing so well right now, red hot. Stay with them. Stay on them. Especially if it's one of these teams that's playing really, really well that just isn't thought of as a very good team. All of a sudden, the Rangers have rattled off 4 in a row, 7 of 10. They're a 500 team. You're not going to have to pay a significant inflated price like you will to back Houston or Oakland or Tampa Bay or somebody like that. You don't have to pay this big inflated price because these teams aren't that highly thought of. But when they're playing well, you can hop on board. So that's something I'm going to have to try and do differently in these daily sports as we go forward here. I just think that for whatever reason, confidence breeds confidence, and these teams play well for an indefinite period of time. Once something happens, maybe they lose a game or 2 in a row, it's time to jump off, hop on another train that's going in the right direction. Again, it's so simplistic. It's not the antithesis of my handicapping necessarily, but it is hard for me to wrap my head around because I'm not a believer in the short term. I'm not a believer in these 5, 6, 8 game sample sizes. But again, recent history has shown us that these teams that start playing really well sustain it for a period of time. They stop, they fall off a little bit, and then maybe they start it again. So it's all part of the handicapping puzzle. And, I guess this is a pretty good transition into the mental side of handicapping here, which I do want to talk about for a couple of minutes here, because I think people are spread all over the map when it comes to this. Some people just want to bet to have fun. Maybe you listen to this show because you want to win. You want to have fun. It's more fun when you win. It just always is. But you're not doing this as a supplement. You're not doing this as an income. You're doing this for fun. You're doing this because you enjoy it. And that's a different level of betting than somebody who's doing it as a supplement. Or in my case, somebody who's doing it in a very public manner, in a public forum. Or in the cases of the guests I have on the show here that have clients that are looking to them for winning picks. There are so many different levels of betting and handicapping. And with the goals that you are trying to achieve, it takes a different toll mentally based on what it is that you're trying to achieve. For me, I mentioned this before, I consider myself a content guy first, a handicapper and a bettor second. I don't live off of my handicapping. I like to use it as a supplement, certainly when things go well. When things don't go so well, it doesn't have a significant bearing, on my quality of life and what I'm able to do and all that type of thing. However, it still takes a significant mental toll on me because I know that what I'm saying goes out to thousands of people a day on the show. Goes out to thousands of people a day that read BangTheBook.com. Mentally, that's hard on me. Your money is more important to me than my money is. Because I have this platform, I care about my readers, I care about my listeners. You guys are the reason why I'm able to do what I'm able to do. So it's really hard on me when things don't go my way. And as somebody who has dealt with some mental health problems in the past, as somebody who has dealt with depression, somebody who has dealt with some anger management issues, there are a lot of triggers out there. And anybody who's dealt with those types of things knows that. And at its core, you have to ask yourself why what handicapping is to you, what betting is to you. Is it a test of your ego? Is it to validate, the fact that you feel like you know a lot about sports? Is it to beat your friends in handicapping contests or pools? Is it about money? What is it about? And then you have to try and maintain that proper perspective. And for me, I had a 4-9 college football Saturday. If things don't go well for me tonight in the SuperContest, I'm going to be very upset if those 2 Monday Night Football games don't go my way. It's hard. It is a hard thing mentally. You have to be able to turn the page and go ahead to the next week while trying to maintain a level of confidence, even though maybe you didn't do so well the week before. To me, that is the hardest part of this business. And it's probably because I come from a frame of reference where, I have seen professionals in the past about my depression. And, I've talked to friends of mine in the industry here that are off to slow starts this season. And it's doubly bad for me coming off of a bad baseball season. But, we all say the same thing, that, this is a hard industry to be in from a mental standpoint. If you take it as seriously as we do, because we have to, because we've got clients and people that, pay attention to what we have to say, it wears on you. It is a lot. If you're just handicapping for fun, you may get pissed off if you lose a bet or something like that. It doesn't linger. It doesn't hang. It doesn't keep you from sleeping at night. But for a lot of people out there, that whether they listen to this show or not, it does. And you have to do everything in your power to maintain as healthy of a perspective as you possibly can. Because if you can't, and this is something I fell victim to every day with the baseball article this year, every day I dreaded getting up to write it. Because the first thing I said to myself is, how do these picks lose today? And it's just like any other walk of life where if you have a negative and pessimistic outlook, it almost always seems to work out that way. Whether it's fate, whether it's circumstantial, I don't know, but it almost always seems to work out that way. And that's an unhealthy perspective for betting and gambling and for life in general. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I have all the answers, because I sure as hell don't. But what I am going to say is that it's very important to pay attention to your own mental well-being, not just in this business, but in general. But as it pertains to this business, because this is a sports betting podcast, this doesn't get easier. You've got college football and you've got the NFL right now. You've got Major League Baseball if you're still doing it. Hockey starts in 3.5 weeks. The NBA starts in 4 weeks? College basketball starts in about 2 months or so, give or take. Make sure to take time for yourself. Take time for your family. Take time for the things that you enjoy outside of this business. Because when this becomes a job for you, it becomes very, very hard to enjoy it. And that's not to say that I don't enjoy sports. I'm not saying it from that frame of reference. I enjoy what I do. I'm very lucky to do what I do. But it is a constant struggle to stay above those dark clouds. So I just encourage everybody out there that, maybe gets off to a tough start, maybe wants to take this to the next level in terms of a supplement, or, try to make some income by selling picks, or, maybe even just become a professional at this. Understand those signs. Understand and be aware of what you need to do to not let this industry drag you down. Because there are going to be a lot of hard times. And think about it. You're wrong 46% of the time. You're really good at what you're doing in this business. In a lot of instances, it's hard to wrap your head around that. So I know I'm just sort of rambling here. It was a tough weekend in a variety of different ways. But I just wanted to, try and convey here on today's show that it's extremely important to take care of you during the seasons. For a lot of people, this isn't your job. For me, it's my job, so I'm at least able to dedicate a lot of time to it on a daily and weekly basis. For a lot of people, they're not able to do that. And maybe that, lack of time investment is beneficial in some ways because, you can stay ahead of the emotional curve here a little bit. But like anything else, if you put a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of emphasis into something and it doesn't work out, it's disappointing. It's frustrating. It makes you angry. But these are long seasons, and this is a long-term business. And one bad week does not define you as a handicapper. One great week does not define you as a handicapper. So you got to be in it for the long haul. And if not being able to handle the mental ups and downs and the swings that come along with it is something that you struggle with, then it's going to be even tougher than just picking winners. So again, understand what it is that you want to get out of this industry. Understand what it is that you want to get out of making picks, of having your money on the line. You got to know what you want. You got to know what it is that you're trying to achieve. And that makes it easier. So before we get into, week 3 of the college football season on Friday, week 2 of the NFL on Thursday, take a minute and think about what it is that you're trying to do here with these picks. If you're trying to have fun, keep it that way. If you're trying to elevate yourself, understand that there are more challenges that come along with it than just handicapping games and picking winners. And if you're somebody who really wants to take this to the next level, well, keep in mind that you may get some of those client emails that you don't want, or you may get some hate on Twitter, or, whatever else. So, again, this comes from maybe a little bit of a defeatist mindset because I'm coming off of such a bad baseball season and off to, about a 500 start in college football. But this is a tough business. And, a lot of times we look at sports as an escape. And if it becomes something other than that for you, understand the ramifications of that. Because I think sports, for a lot of people, should be an escape. it should be something you do to have fun. Going to the bar with friends to watch a game. Having some investments out there. Being in handicapping pools or contests. All well and good, all great, all fantastic. Just keep in mind that, as you elevate, as your bet sizes get bigger, or, as what you are trying to achieve changes, that's going to change your outlook and your perspective on it all as well. So, like I said, I'm rambling here a little bit, going off the cuff. I didn't really expect to have to do this first segment on my own here today, but it's so important. Mental health in general is very important for me, and it's a very important thing here in this handicapping business that we're all in as well. So I just wanted to say a few things. Hopefully they made sense. Hopefully they came out in the way that was intended. But again, as we just continue to get busier and busier here throughout the fall and then on into the winter as well, just keep in mind that, what your goals are, what you're looking to achieve, can have a pretty big impact on how you approach this mentally. And there's nothing better than a Monday after a big weekend. And in some cases, there's nothing worse than a Monday after a bad weekend. So keep it all in the proper perspective. Don't get too high. Don't get too low. And you should be able to be okay when all is said and done. While we're waiting for Kyle Hunter to join me here, I just want to let you know that on Tuesday's show, we'll chat with Brian Blessing and Rolf Michaels. We'll do some NFL Week 2 stuff, also some college football Week 3 stuff. Wednesday, Brian Leonard and Wes Reynolds. Thursday, Brad Powers will join me. And likely Fabian Sommer again. Thor Nystrom still has some things going on in his personal life. Probably won't be able to join me this Thursday. Hoping to get him back the following Thursday. And then Friday, same thing as this past Friday. Westgate SuperContest selection segment to lead off the show. Also some thoughts on the Circa Million. And then Brent from DSI Sportsbook with this week's version of the Odds Report. So that's what you'll hear here the rest of the week on Bang the Book Radio.